happens when you take the production incompetence of the Birdemic movies, the boringness of Manos the Hands of Fate, and the overusage of green screen like Amazing Bulk, you get this movie. The movie begins with opening credits that go on forever, just like Birdemic, except instead of showing things happening, they just have footage of a clock and text that's preset fonts in Premiere Pro. And they show the main character guy who looks like the human equivalent of Johnny Bravo with no emotion whatsoever. And he's riding his bike, and they have this whimsical music playing, again, very Birdemic-esque. He stops at a yard sale, and by that it's like some old man, he just has a mat on his front garden, and he's selling like a bunch of old china and tableware and shit like that. That's where our main character finds the time machine, which is just this little box, and he talks to the old man, and the old man says something about how he's the chosen one. I don't really know why he says that, because it's not like it comes back later in the movie. Also, this is one of the few times they actually record outside, and I gotta say, the audio quality when they're outside is shit.
Here, let me get a sturdy bag for you to carry it in. You wouldn't want to drop it.
After that, we see the main character then go to his house and just drink orange juice instead of just test the time machine out right away. And let me just say, I'm speeding things up because they go into agonizing detail of this man just walking into his house and then going to the fridge, getting some orange juice, getting a glass, pouring some orange juice in, drinking the orange juice, finishing it, putting it in the sink, and then he goes over to the time machine. This shit drags on so badly. So then he finally decides to try out the time machine, and he notices that the time machine works by the clock on the wall going backwards by like 2 minutes. And by that, the scene literally does just take 2 minutes of them looking at a clock go backwards. And this is where the overusage of green screen comes in, because he then stands in front of a green screen of Hollywood Boulevard, and then he teleports into the woods, and there's a couple shots of him walking through these woods, and then halfway through it becomes green screen, because I guess that's when they realized that the audio quality of them outside was shitty. Because then what happens is he comes across these like nuns. They're wearing these like purple nun costumes who are like slaves, and they're picking berries off of trees and bushes that don't even have fruit on them. They establish that they're slaves because there's like this little PNG of Saturn that's floating around, and that's supposed to be like some kind of like security drone that makes sure that they never step out of line. So he talks to one of the women, and she has this whole backstory, and there's I gotta bring this up. The production on this, the camera work and the cinematography is so laughably bad.
Who is after us?
The law enforcers.
Listen to me. I have the power to prevent them from ever taking you back.
Where do you come from?
Because every scene in this movie, when there's dialogue between two characters, most of the time, it's just in a wide shot. It's just two people, one person standing on this side, one person on this side, talking. And then if you're lucky, maybe they'll have shots of them up close, just talking to the camera, implying that they're talking to the other person. Usually with cinematography, when you want to have it that a character is talking to another person, and you want to show them from like this angle and say like someone's like right here in front of me, you don't have it that they're looking right at the camera. You have it that they're looking at the person. But since they apparently didn't want to do that, they just have them look directly at the camera and talk to the audience, implying that the audience is the other person. It's like filmmaking 101, and apparently they didn't even get that. Going back to the audio mixing, I love the fact that every time they're supposed to be outside, maybe they'll overlay some kind of stock wood sound effect over it, but it doesn't stop the fact that where they're recording is clearly some echoey room, because that's what it is. They're recording on a green screen in an echoey room. Again, going back to the whole Amazing Bulk thing. You'll have scenes where people are supposed to be outside, and you can clearly tell they just recorded this indoors in front of green screen.
Well, I came from the past. Travel here through time.
How did you travel through time?
I have a machine. Time machine that I use to travel through time.
They get chased by the stock image of Saturn for a little bit, and then eventually they use the time machine, and I don't really know if they go forward or backward in time, but the point is they end up in another wooded area, and they're not being followed by the Saturn drone thing, and there's also no people around. They end up wandering for a little bit, and they come across a poorly rendered CG spaceship, and they just so happen to know how to operate it. Like, as soon as they get on, they then just start pushing buttons on this little plastic keyboard light bright toy thing in front of them, and they all of a sudden know how to pilot this spaceship. This man from like modern times, whenever the movie was made, and some woman from the future, you know, now they're just like in a relationship. They're buddies. They're fucking Bill and Ted, I guess, and they're just hanging out. And now they're operating a spaceship.
Ramp up.
I want to point this out. Aside from like the end of the movie, this is basically the last time they use the time machine. Yeah, from that point forward, it becomes like this shitty space drama for no reason. So now they're piloting a spaceship, they travel from planet to planet, and by that I mean they put a poorly CG rendered spaceship floating amongst stock images of planets that they were able to get off Google Images. And then there's a bunch of them just walking around, walking in front of the green screen, pulling an amazing bulk once again, just like in front of the green screen, pretending to walk. And if they're not doing that, they do the thing where it's like the side angle shot where like they go from one side of the camera to the other side. The whole movie is just them wandering on green screened planets with either images they got off of Google Images, or sometimes they have images that look like straight up MS Paint. Stuff that happens on some of these planets include they come across this space resistance, like it's Star Wars. Like they go to, I guess, supposed to be like a cantina place, and they talk to some rebel alliance. What they're fighting against, I'm not really sure. I mean, the only other time we get something like this in the movie where they imply that there's some kind of Star War going on is there's a part where they get chased by like battleships that are shooting lasers at them. That's really it. Like I don't know what the whole connection of this like space resistance was, but yeah, it's just a thing that comes and then they kind of reference it in dialogue. Also in this scene you get a woman belly dancing for 3 minutes with very inappropriate music. It's music that's way too fast paced compared to the way she's dancing. Space rebel resistance thing gives them jobs because they reference in dialogue just, oh yeah, you know, we've been hired by the rebels to go do errands for them. So yeah, now these guys are like the errand boys of some space resistance, and they go to a bunch of different planets to get stuff. One planet they end up on is Planet D, and they say it's like the 4th planet of the sun, which I'm pretty sure that's Mars, but apparently in the future we have more planets now, and one's called Planet D. And it's some forest planet with poorly rendered dinosaurs that don't even move. And the dinosaur does this like cartoon velociraptor thing, doesn't even attack them. It just looks at them and then they're like, we gotta get out of here. And then that's it, they're off the planet. Next thing you know.
I'm so frightened.
Well, now we know what the D stands for.
Oh man, almost interesting thing happened. Get that shit out of here. We got time to waste. I would like to believe that this was what M. Night Shyamalan and Will Smith pictured when they were trying to make After Earth, but the only difference was that had a bigger budget. But yeah, I mean, in terms of plot with this movie, like really nothing happens after that. It's just them going on a bunch of different planets, which are just green screen footage of them in front of a bunch of stock images off of Google Images, and that's it. There's just a lot of walking. Like, that's it. I didn't think it was possible, but this movie earned the title of Placeholder Footage the Movie somehow more than Amazing Bulk. I guess it's implied that they formed some kind of like romantic relationship. There's a part where they're on a planet that has like stock footage of waterfalls and stuff like that, and there's a part where like they're like holding each other and then it crossfades to nothing for 2 minutes. I don't know why that is, and then for some reason it just shows the lady brushing her hair. That goes on for quite a while. I don't know why they do any of this, but I think that kind of just describes the whole movie. As bad as those Birdemic movies were, at least Birdemic had the actors kiss on screen. If you weren't gonna have it that you're gonna have your main actors kiss on camera, if you're going to establish some kind of romantic relationship between your two leads, could you have more personality than just two pieces of wood looking at each other? End up on some desert planet and they go looking for something for the rebel resistance group, and that's it. They just go on this planet, look around a bunch, walk around a lot, and then, okay, time to get out of here.
He's got another job for us.
Does it involve the resistance?
No, he says it's not dangerous. He said he'd do it himself if he had a ship.
What is it?
We'd have to go pick something up on another planet and bring it back here.
It's not anywhere near where those Star Cruisers were, is it?
No, it's not anywhere near there. But he said he'd pay us 10,000 credits to do it.
Like, this movie feels like it's made as a joke on the audience. It's like someone sat there and went, how could we just waste people's time? Boom, and that's how we got Time Machine I Found at a Yard Sale. Oh, and there's also a scene where he asks her to make them sandwiches, and he asks like a 9-year-old kid would ask his mom, and again, these two are supposed to be in like a relationship.
I'm getting kind of hungry. Do you think you can go to the galley and make us a couple sandwiches? Bring back some drinks, please?
Finally, something actually starts to happen, and I say that very loosely, when they end up on this snow planet, and there's them walking in front of... There's two different things they walk in front of. They walk in front of either MS Paint of dark blue sky and white snow ground, or they walk in front of some like stock image they got off of Google Images of a glacier area. Finally, something happens as they go looking on this planet for something, and then they're like, man, it's too cold for us to be out here. They say after we get 2 shots of them walking from one side of the camera to the other side.
It's much colder here. We need to get back to the ship.
We're not dressed for this.
And they go, man, it's too cold out here. We should try to get back to the spaceship. But then the spaceship blows up. Yeah, it seems like these guys are in a pickle. And I love the dialogue because they're like, oh no, do we have the time machine? I don't know, I'll check. He didn't even know if he had the time machine that got them into this whole predicament. But he's like, let me check. It turns out he does have the time machine. And yeah, you remember that? They finally remembered all that after the nothing that happens in this fucking movie.
Robert, is the time machine in your backpack?
I don't know. Can't remember.
He used the time machine to go back to where he was from in regular modern times. And so they meet up with his family. They talk about getting married, even though they say that they've known each other for like a week. And again, have all the chemistry of 2 wet pieces of bread. So after they're back in his time and they talk to his family, then they decide, oh, well, okay, well, let's get back to the ship, because apparently the ship is now fully operational again. I don't know. And then they find a treasure map, which looks like it was drawn by some kindergartners, and they even point that out. Like, it doesn't even say like what planet it is or like what coordinates is to go to. They just say, oh, look at this treasure map. And then next thing you know, they end up on some planet that's like some, Hawaii tropical island getaway resort. And the movie even ends with them contemplating whether or not they should go back to the Rebel Alliance.
We need a little rest, but at some point we need to help the resistance. If you don't want to, we won't.
I didn't say I didn't want to help them. Just think we need rest.
That's fine. I won't say anything else about it.
I want to help them. Told Agassiz we would. It's just a question of when.
You really gotta appreciate it when a movie has to end with the characters wondering if they should continue with the plot. This movie is incredibly boring. Like I said, just like Manos, The Hands of Fate, it is really dull. But the few times that stuff actually happens in this movie, it is so unintentionally hilarious because of how bad it is. I've been referencing it all throughout. The green screen shit, that was reminding me a lot of Amazing Bulk. And a lot of the really bad acting and really like repetitive, going nowhere script kind of reminded me of Birdemic. This movie, if you can find it on YouTube, because that was where I was able to find it, if you watch it on YouTube and you like So Bad It's Good movies, give it a shot, because even though it is extremely boring and extremely tedious to sit through, there are some diamond in the rough moments where, hey, that's actually kind of funny based on how bad the production is. Aside from all the really boring, tedious, extraneous moments that are very Manos, The Hands of Fate like, it does border on those scenes of stuff from So Bad It's Good Shit. We talked about, like, again, Birdemic, Amazing Bulk, Cool Cat, the David Dakota Talking Animal movies, all those kind of things. It does kind of border on that. Honestly, I would be more interested if this movie had a compilation or like a supercut on YouTube, where it was just like a compilation of all the scenes that were so bad they were funny and all the really boring shit was cut out. If you're able to highlight all the best moments of this movie, that would be a lot more interesting than actually watching the movie itself. But if you're able to sit through a really funny bad movie with a lot of really dry spots, at your own risk, sure, check out The Time Machine I found at a yard sale. Next time we're going to be looking at an actually mainstream movie that went to theaters, and this is going to be an interesting one. We're going to be looking at a movie from the guy who directed A Nightmare Before Christmas. Not Tim Burton, he was the producer. The guy who directed it was Henry Selick, and this is his attempt at doing a PG-13 comedy. And it also stars Brendan Fraser, as well as Chris Kattan. Okay, he doesn't really star in it, he just kind of shows up near the end. And it's a movie I've watched once a long time ago on TV and never saw ever again. It's called Monkey Bone. I've heard a lot of people say that it's bad, but again, I only watched it once very long ago and I don't remember anything, so we'll see how that turns out. Until then, guys, I'm Adam Sykes of the Blockbuster Show, and we will see you guys in the next video.